just give us a few minutes to do that. So we have a great session coming up. I think we should start now. We have attendees coming in, and now is a good time to start our session. So today we're going to have a session where we're in conversation with Ridhi Ghelani. And before we come to the meat of the session, I'd like to just give you a little bit of background about the Red Pen. So the Red Pen is a comprehensive MBA, a comprehensive education consulting firm. I'm going to talk about our MBA services. Now, our MBA services, I mean, we've been in the business for about 11 years now, and we have a global team. Our team of consultants have degrees, MBA degrees from global programs, top leading global programs, and we pride ourselves as a really invested partner in your MBA application journey. We've put up some of the stats that we have, and I think the kind of investment we make in our applicants, in our clients, is very visible when you look at the kind of admissions results we've had over the last 2 years. IESE being one of the schools where we've seen a lot of our clients be admitted as well. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about today's session. I'm very happy to welcome Ridhi Ghelani, who's an admissions director with IESE, who looks at India, Southeast Asia, and Oceania, and a really committed MBA mentor as well, and an alumna of IESE as well, 2017. So welcome, Ridhi. It's a pleasure to have you here today.
Likewise. Thank you so much, Natasha, for that lovely introduction, and welcome again to everyone here today. I'm, of course, very, very excited to be here and hopefully provide you with insights, just like I promised, on everything, right? Academics, culture, recruitment, living in Barcelona, and much more. So I think without further ado, let me take over and share my screen so that I can have some visual representation of everything that I talk about. Just give me a moment. Perfect. Can everyone see my screen? I would take that as a yes.
Ridhi, before we start, I just want to let everyone who is attending this session know that if you think of questions while Ridhi is going through the information session, please do post your sessions in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, and we look at addressing them after we have our conversation. So please don't forget to do that.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think, guys, this is a great opportunity for all of you to ask, questions about my experience, right? About what to expect at IESE. What is the application process like, right? If you have any specific questions about the GMAT or the GRE or recruitment, I would strongly suggest that go ahead and ask us as many questions as possible, because this is as close as it gets to having an insider's perspective, about a B-score. Starting off, I would like to give you a quick introduction to myself. And of course, Natasha has done a fantastic job at it already. My name is Ridhi Ghelani. I am the Associate Director of Admissions. I look after India, Southeast Asia, and Oceania. A small trivia is that I'm also an alumnus, graduated in 2017. Something that IESE very strongly fosters is to have real experience at every team level, right? So the entire admissions team, in fact, is an amalgamation of all of us alumni representing different years, different academic, professional backgrounds prior to the MBA. Some of us went into different roles post the MBA and found ourselves back at IESE. So I think that's something unique about the program, that every admissions director is truly a representation of what IESE has to offer, and also gives us the ability to identify the right fit, for IESE, right? With every future candidate that we onboard into the community or the cohort. Here's a little bit fun picture, and then to give you a perspective of what is diversity at IESE, right? And then when we say that we have 85% diversity, guys, we really mean it. Now, these two pictures are, of course, very dated. These were back from 2015 to 2016. This is also my core learning team. Right now at IESE, when you enter the program, right from day one, you are assigned a learning team, aka a support group, aka a family that you can lean on for the entirety of year one. In my case, even today, to grow, to learn, to be there for each other personally, professionally. Right now, as you can see, that we were a lovely team, and all of us came from such diverse backgrounds, right? Like I had a Brazilian, I had a Brit, I was the Indian or the Asian on my team. I had someone from France, I had an Israeli Air Force pilot, I had someone from Switzerland, and of course, I had, two Spaniards on my team, right? So imagine walking into your team meeting every morning where you're discussing case studies, you're discussing team projects, you're discussing mock interviews, you're discussing, life in Barcelona, you're discussing personal relationships, and you have such a diverse perspective, right? I mean, I think it's literally about embracing and adapting to a new environment, to new people right from day one. And I think this is one of the core reasons why I truly believe that IESE has been a game changer for me, right? It's helped me grow professionally. It's helped me become an individual who's a lot more cognizant of others' perspectives and views, right? And who's not very biased from her own experiences, right? It helped me go beyond just my cultural affinities and backgrounds, right? Also, one of the key reasons why I chose IESE, right? Because prior to the MBA, I had spent my entire academic and professional journey in India. More like I'm a Bombay girl, so I never left the city, for more than a couple of years when I was in boarding school. So for me, truly being in a diverse environment meant not just having white faces, but really having experiences that are unique, right? And that'll help me learn and grow as well, right? So yeah, that's a little bit about what I took away from my experience at IESE, and hopefully giving you a glimpse of what you might experience, should you find yourself at the program next year as well. Now let's talk a little bit about the MBA program and what it actually entails, right? Of course, from a ranking perspective, something that I completely understand that as a fellow applicant, right? I mean, I've been in your shoes, well, 8 years ago, looking at, okay, what is this next best step that I need to take for myself, right? Identifying, okay, is it worth the ranking? Is it going to give me the recognition if I return to India? Or in general, is it going to give me global recognition, right? If I want to work with some of the top tier companies, right? Whether it's consulting, whether it's tech, whether it's finance, whether it's an industry role altogether, right? So IESE consistently has been doing fantastic when it comes to ranking. We're ranked number 10 globally by FT and third in Europe, right? So something that I really urge you to consider when you're thinking about pursuing your MBA program, that if ranking is a checklist that you're looking at, I mean, I think IESE should definitely, tick the box for you. Now, a question that I get a lot is, okay, what is this class that you're so highly talking about being diverse and being international comprise of, right? So guys, every cohort is about 350 to 380, depending upon the year, depending upon the nationalities, depending upon the applications, but it's never larger than that, right? And I truly think this gives you enough and more opportunities over the course of 2 years to really connect with your peers, right? Being in a cohort which is just the perfect size, that's also contributing to the alumni network year on year. We have over 50,000 alumni in our IESE MBA network today, but at the same time, not being lost on campus, right? Knowing every peer or every classmate or every team member to a point that you can reach out to them 10 years later and still talk about that one bar of the week that you attended and had the blast of a time. Right. And again, like I mentioned, 85% diversity is something that we're very proud of. And that's something that we ensure that is consistent year on year, no matter what. I don't think a single year has seen deviation when it comes to this number. while the average age is 29 and the average work experience is 5 years, we're not fixated on this number, right? Guys, these are average numbers, which means, of course, it's a combination of higher and lower numbers. What is important is what are you bringing to the table, right? When you engage in a case participation, when you engage in a team project, it's more important for us to know what are your insights, right? What are your skill sets, how collaborative you are, and how willing you are to share your insights with others, right? And I think this is what I am looking for, especially when I'm recruiting a candidate to join the IESE community. We also have, well, I'm very proud to say that the 30% women mark is no longer this low. This year, in fact, with the class of 2024, we have a whopping 38.5% women in class. And we hope that this number only continues to increase as we go year on year. Again, with respect to diversity, we have 55 plus nationalities. You can see the numbers here. We do have a huge mix of professional experiences as well when it comes to finance, consulting. All of this is pre-MBA career paths, right? So this is just to give you an idea of how global and how diverse your class, your cohort, your team would be. Now, this to me is a perfect way to kind of take you through what your 2 years of academic journey at IESE will be like, right? So let's assume you all apply, you all get through and are coming to IESE in the month of August 2023, right? So we have something called the Business Spanish program, which is, of course, an optional course that's available to every candidate coming in to learn Spanish, right? Now, you're in Spain, you're in Barcelona. Knowing the local language more than como estas and hola can be helpful. Well, it's not a necessity, to be honest. Take the word of someone who barely learned a few statements and thrived, right, in Barcelona. The course is taught completely in English, so you don't have to worry about knowing the language at large. But again, if it's something that's been on your bucket list to master, a second language, this is your chance, right? If you decide to not take the business Spanish, you would start your core courses in the month of September. Now, you go through 24 core courses, right? So you would essentially do everything under the umbrella of business. You do something strategy, capital markets, managerial accounting, financial accounting, marketing, luxury marketing, leadership, ethics, you name the subject, and you're potentially going to learn about it in your year one, right? Now, what the year one also does is it truly helps build a foundation of business, right? And it also sets the base for what your year two should look like, right? Because come year two, you would actually be the master of your academic journey. You decide whether you want to tailor make your academic journey in marketing or in finance, or have a general management approach, or learn very specifically about data analytics or sustainability, right? Having the foundation from your year one really sets you up to really identify what are currently my skill gaps that still exist, and how can I make sure that I overcome them? Because I do believe that each of you all coming to an MBA definitely want to learn and grow, right? And the agenda and the objective is that I want to make it to my career aspiration or my dream job post the MBA, but I can't right now because maybe I don't have the right spreadsheet modeling skills, or maybe I'm an engineer and I don't have a formal business education, right? So this is what the entire year one really helps you develop. Now, whether you want to do a 15-month or a 19-month program, this decision you would take only after 6 months of being into the program, right? So that's the flexibility that the school is, giving you, right? Now, with the 15-month program, you would essentially skip the summer internship and use the summer to complete your core electives or your summer electives, right? So that you finish your course by December rather than the next May. Now, in my opinion, someone coming from a family business, a sponsored candidate, or a candidate who is essentially looking to get back into the corporate world ASAP, the 15-month program is ideal for you, right? Which means that you're not being away from, all things business for that longer period of time. Now, if you decide to do the 19 months, something that I did myself, you get the opportunity to do work in a social or corporate internship, during your summer. We'll get to, recruitment, both for internships and post-MBA in just a bit. You also have something called the entrepreneurship experience, right? Now, if you are a budding entrepreneur, want to create a startup, have a fantastic idea, have an idea, but want to create an MVP, this is your chance to really go to market, right? You can use your summer to work with professors, peers to really take your idea to fruition. And trust me, if your idea is really that good, IESE has a fund called Finaways, and the fund over the last decade has contributed to almost 8,000 startups that IESE alumni have started, right? So this is truly, if you are into entrepreneurship, this is literally something that you do not want to miss out on, right? And this is also telling you that the school focuses so much on entrepreneurship as a career path, right? Now, moving on to year two. Year two, you can see there's a lot happening, right? So in year two, of course, like I mentioned before, you get to tailor make what your academic experience would be like, right? You have 130 plus electives to choose from, and it's a lot, right? Maybe one of you can ask me a question later about which was my favorite elective, and I'll answer that. But the idea is that you can either take electives that span the entire spectrum of business, or you can decide to also focus on specific areas through concentrations such as international business, finance, entrepreneurship. We've just introduced a new concentration called sustainability, because of course we're very, very aware that sustainability is no longer a concept that can just be skewed to one sector or one particular job role, right? Today, all of us in our own stead need to develop sustainability as a concept in how we work, how we behave, and how we sort of grow and develop, right? The other two options are something called the overseas module, right? Now, ISE has small campuses in several of these locations, such as Sao Paulo, Nairobi, New York, of course, Shanghai. We also had one in Dubai last year. You can decide to really maximize your international experience and take part in a 2-week intensive module and actually study out of one of these international locations as well, right? Now, the one that I took most advantage of was the international exchange program, right? We have 30 partner schools globally, and you can decide to do an entire semester as an exchange student at any of these schools, right? So I myself was an exchange student, went to Cornell Johnson Business School for an entire semester, loved the experience, came out with a second network of peers and mentors, professors. So this is something that you can also very, very much leverage if you're interested in the international exchange program. And then, of course, you come back, in Jan, finish the rest of your electives right up till April, May, and you graduate in the month of May with a fantastic degree and ready to take over the world, right? All right. Now, case method. And I think this is truly one of the most distinctive advantages that IESE has, right? Now, what is the case method and why is it something that we really like to talk to them about, right? 80% of your classes, guys, are done in a case study method. But I'm not sure about most of you, but I certainly spent my entire academic journey in India, which often meant a lecture-based method, right? You come to class, you have a professor who's narrating a concept to you, and you're often tested on your ability to, say, retain the concept, right? Not necessarily understand it or even understand the practical application of it, right? So when I was picking a business school, I was certain that I want to be in an academic experience which was completely practical, right? And that's exactly what IESE delivered. With 80% case study method, you typically engage in 3 case studies a day, which means that you would do about 400 case studies at the end of 2 years, which also means that at any given point in time, you are looking at a business problem from a 360 perspective, right? Let me give you an example. Now, we were doing a case study about a retail giant in Europe wanting to go completely digital and remove physical stores, right? Now, when I did the numbers and when I came to class, I was so very sure that given the entire digital boom, it made complete sense. And I presented my case first to my team and then to, my section, saying that I truly think that, this retail giant has created its brand name, it has a lot of brand awareness and penetration. So why not, right? Save costs, go, digital, increase sort of, your ticket size of, purchase, for instance. But I had like peers in my class who came with completely different perspectives, right? Well, somebody was talking about, but do we still want to move away from the feel and the touch, right? Do we want to move away from providing, the kind of user experience that actually is trend setting, right? Do we want to take away from the magnanimity of what the brand has to offer and restrict it to just a mobile application or a web application, right? And these are the kind of discussions that really sort of make you take a step back and be like, aha, I did not think about that, and that's an interesting viewpoint. So it's not that I'm wrong, and it's not that my peer is wrong as well. It's just that we're contributing to each other's learning, right? You will do this, like I said, 3 times a day, 400 plus times throughout the 2 years. So just think about the kind of analytical, problem solving, critical thinking mindset that you'll walk away with, right? When you graduate from the program at large. Now, how does this work, right? I give you a little bit of glimpse of how it works, but just to quickly take you through, you as an individual will prepare the case study, at home, in school, wherever you prefer. You come every morning with your team. Remember the first slide I shared with, this diverse team of mine where we were enjoying a lovely dinner in Barcelona. Well, we really worked hard as well, right? Every morning we met from 7:30 to 8:30 to discuss the 3 case studies for the day, to engage in conversations and add to each other's learnings before we went to class, right? And then, of course, the class is where the magic begins, right? You have a fantastic professor who's been doing this for decades, leading a very engaging conversation with, 70 peers in class who are all sort of trying to make sense of what the business problem is, what are the solutions that, we can cater to. And trust me, it is literally one of the funnest and one of the most interesting ways to learn some of the most boring concepts as well, and take my word for it, right? All right. So I'm going to spend some time on this section because I am very aware that, of course, a key criteria why especially, Indian applicants look for international MBA is career development, right? I mean, I think that's the core objective, that you are doing an MBA to, of course, upskill and upgrade yourself. But most importantly, you should be able to grow professionally and in your career as well, right? If you look at this chart, guys, it'll give you a very good breakdown of what are certain strengths at IESE, right, with respect to recruitment post the MBA. Now, talking as a former student and Indian, international candidate, having witnessed peers, get into like all of these fantastic companies internationally, what I can definitely tell you is that industries that do really well are consulting, tech, and finance, right? And the numbers speak for themselves. You have a third of the class every year going into consulting, right? So that's a huge number of students out of 350 going into consulting. And when we say consulting, it's global recruitment, right? Understand that as an Indian applicant, unless you are proficient in business level Spanish, you are probably not targeting Spain as your location, right? Unless, of course, you want to work in a startup, which you get a fantastic opportunity for. You will be targeting locations like London, like Netherlands, like Luxembourg, like Dublin, even Berlin in Germany, and of course, Dubai, right? And IESE recruits heavily in each of these locations. So whether it's consulting with respect to the MBBs, your Kearneys, your Deloittes, whether it's tech with respect to Amazon, Microsoft, Google, Siemens, leadership programs, whether it's finance with respect to investment banking, corporate finance, corporate finance leadership programs, right? You essentially have an opportunity to potentially work across Europe. I would say focus your energies in locations which are very open to native English speakers. And I do not think, or I have not seen, Indian candidates face a challenge in wanting to get internships or full-time opportunities, right? In fact, this year, it's a record that the 4 investment banking internships across the entire batch at IESE have been were given to 4 Indian students, right? And out of the the total 33% that went into consulting, a whopping 10% were Indians. And also imagine that Indians as a community do not represent more than 15% of the total class. So you can see that we're doing very well, right, as a community internationally. But what does this mean to you? This means that when you go to B school at IESE, you are getting access to a network of Indian alumni who are placed in some of these top organizations in Europe and UK, which means that you get to leverage this network, right? You got to interact with them. You got to create the side door, the back door into these organizations, because IESE is of course going to give you the front door access to all of it, right? So this is giving you in a nutshell what recruitment at IESE really looks like. What you see, these different treks that are happening in these different locations are all led by student clubs and student-led organizations, right? So if you are, let's say, interested in consulting, right, you will of course want to be part of the consulting club, also one of the largest student-led clubs, at on campus and otherwise. Now, the consulting club every year takes a consulting trek to London in the month of October. They do another trek to Dubai in the month of Jan, and they do a third trek in Asia in the month of March, right? So you essentially want to be a part of all of these consulting treks, because instead of having to interact with all these recruiters when they come to campus, and you're sort of fighting for attention amidst 350 of your peers, these treks would be essentially tailor-made with about 25 to 30 of you going on these treks, right? So just imagine the kind of interaction, the kind of fireside chats you will have access to, if you do actually participate in these treks, right? So in a nutshell, IESE has a lot that they are going to offer you when it comes to career, growth, recruitment. We have an entire career development center that is dedicated to just supporting your growth, right? Even within the development center, we have somebody who's looking at careers just in finance, just in tech, just in consulting, in healthcare, in marketing, in luxury marketing, right? So that's the kind of focus IESE has on ensuring that you have the best opportunities to grow post your MBA at large, right? And something that I did touch upon when it comes to student-led clubs and organizations, ways in which you can be a part of the community that goes beyond just recruitment opportunities is through student clubs, right? Now the culture of the school is all about collaboration. Everyone, trust me, at IESE knows each other. Even your barista at your cafe will know your order and know how you take your milk. If you take the almond milk or if you take the normal milk, do you take sugar, do you not take sugar? It's that level of warm fuzzy family, right? If I were to describe it to you, which also means that the students are very engaged with each other, right? They want to really spend time helping, supporting, learning from each other. And the best way to do that outside of the classroom is to be part of several of these student clubs, organizations, events that really bring you together, that help you really also leverage your classmates' networks and experiences, right? I mean, each of you are coming with 3, 4, 5, 6 years of work experience, and so are your classmates. So if you have a network already of someone who's working probably, say, in a top tier organization in India, they have a similar network in Europe, right? So you don't want to miss out on a chance or the ability to really leverage this amazing sort of core network that you have access to, apart from just the alumni, who are in some of these top organizations as well. We also do very specific events based on interest. As you can see, we have global energy. We have something called the Doing Good, Doing Well, which is our flagship event. If you are interested in anything sustainability, in anything, which is to do with the betterment of the environment and society, this is a conference that you definitely want to be a part of in one format or the other, right? Women in business is something that's also huge at IESE. We, in fact, have dedicated scholarships, guys, which are also for women candidates, or funds which are used to help female candidates get access to certain venture capital, or a startup idea if they want to fund, right? Because the focus is to build future women leaders. Case in point. Now, almost towards the end of our presentation, and something that I would like to throw light upon, which is of course the admissions process. As the admissions director, I think it's only plausible that I give you some insights and hopefully an insider's perspective on what I look for when I want to read an application for a potential candidate, right? Now, just some key dates for you all to remember. We do have a very, very first preliminary round called the early decision, which is on September 6th. It works similar to several other early action, opportunities, where of course you can see your decision is released by mid-October, end of October, which means that you will have to commit to the program sooner rather than later, but also means that maybe conversions are more favorable, right? Because we understand that if you are, keen to apply to us that early in the entire application cycle, we do also want to provide more favorable outcomes, right? So that's the early decision. And then, of course, we have 4 rounds preceding that. I would strongly suggest that, round 2 is pretty much one of the last rounds that we encourage, international students to apply. Round 3 and 4 gets extremely competitive, specifically if you're looking for scholarships, right? If you are in need of a scholarship or are wanting a scholarship, round 3 and 4 are extremely difficult to get yourself a scholarship. And of course, even the conversion rates, for your admit are getting increasingly difficult because, as you can imagine, a good portion of the class is already filled up by then. And what does the admissions process entail, right? So we essentially have one application form, which is a very straightforward application form to get to know you better. We have, of course, a CV, we have 2 personal essays and 1 optional essay. We require only 1 letter of recommendation. We, of course, need a GMAT or a GRE. I have no preference of one over the other. It completely depends on what you are more comfortable with. As an Indian applicant, you would not require a TOEFL or any other English test because I'm assuming that you would be doing your undergrad in English. So, and I think that's sufficient. So you don't need to take an English test for the IESE application. And if you are keen to apply for a scholarship, this is going to be part of your application form itself. If you tick yes, there is a small scholarship essay that you need to fill out as well, right? And with respect to the entire timeline of it, once we have your application, we review it only to past the deadline, right? So it's not a rolling application. Once we've received all the applications, we do a pre-committee with all your candidacies at large. We sift through them, we identify who are the ones that we would like to interview. You would be interviewed. You would then have something called the assessment day, right? Now, the assessment day is a great way, even for you, to understand what life at IESE is like, right? Because as part of the assessment day, you will be put into a random team of 5 members. You will get a case study about a week prior to the assessment day. And on the day of the assessment day, you will have a live virtual case discussion that you will participate in, right? Now, this experience is actually a win-win for both you and us. It gives you the opportunity, like I mentioned, to truly engage in an ESA virtual classroom and see for yourself what this experience would be like. And of course, doing this in person for 2 years later. And it gives us a fantastic way to get to know you a little bit more, right? It helps us see a different perspective, a different side of you that we may not have seen in your interview or your application. We get to see how well you work with the team, right? We get to see your analytical and your participative skill sets over here as well. So that's what the assessment day is all about. After the assessment day, you, of course, the committee meets, for one final time, reviews the application, and you will have your final decision, often along with your scholarship decision at the same time. Right? So guys, this is what the entire admissions and application process looks like. And with this, I have the final, slide to talk about what the finances would look like, right? So the tuition fees for next year is going to be 99,500 euros. There are several loans that are available that IESE has tied up with through Spanish banks, which is called Banco Sabadell or Caixa Bank. You also have something called the Prodigy loan, which is again exclusive to the IESE candidates and covers up to 80% of not only your tuition, but also your living expenses, right? It is a very, very popular loan that I think almost 50% of, the students who apply for loans go for. And then, of course, like I mentioned, IESE does very well on scholarships as well. The scholarship, we have almost 40% of the class that gets some form of scholarship ranging from 10 to almost 50% of your tuition cost, right? So the earlier you apply, guys, the more favorable you are putting yourself in, or rather the more favorable chances are that you're going to get yourself a scholarship, right? If you apply to me in round 3 or round 4, the chances are going to be fairly diminished purely because, we've already committed these funds to students who've applied to us earlier. Okay. So this is what is giving you a nutshell of how you can finance, your MBA at IESE, because we truly believe that it's a huge investment, right? I never call it an expense because it's an investment in yourself, right? It's an investment in your future, in your personal and professional growth at large. And with that, I am done with my presentation. You can scan these QR codes, which are there on the screen, to get access to the IESE MBA brochure, or of course also register for our events and open days. And open day is a simulation of what the assessment day would be like. You do get to participate in a virtual case discussion with a professor. And I think it's a fantastic opportunity for you to really understand what IESE has to offer. So in case you would like to, you can access any of these now. But hello again, Natasha.
Hey, Ridhi. I just want to remind everyone that, why don't you put your questions in the Q&A box? Ridhi is here and can answer your questions. What I'd like to do though, Ridhi, is I have a question for you. So if we can start with that while I think people will be putting their questions in. I think one of the questions which I would really want to understand, and I know we've touched on this piece throughout your presentation. I mean, a third of the class in consulting, like that is a huge number. I just want to understand, we've spoken about various resources that students have access to, but if I were to really ask you how the school, enables that transition for their students, because it's not like everyone's coming from consulting. So, how does the school really set students up for a career in this particular field?
Absolutely. And great question, Natasha. So I think, if I were to answer this question strategically, I would say that, right from day one, IESE prepares you to be a consultant, right? It is a general management MBA program. When you come to school every day, you've worked on 3 case studies, and each potentially representing a different business problem, a different industry, a different country and company, right? So in the morning, you're probably working on whether should Zara go digital or remain physical and digital. Right before lunch, you're probably doing a case study on should Benihana work, and sort of create like a lean, just-in-time, order system given its way of operations as a restaurant. And probably in the afternoon, you're working on an ethics case study about potentially firing, an employee who has by mistake shared confidential information, with his family. Right. So just see the spectrum of knowledge sharing that you will have just in one day. And I think as a consultant, the core skill set that you need is the ability to problem solve, right? To be able to understand what your client is facing and to be able to break it down into strong, palpable solutions, right? So I think number one, just the sheer academic path helps each candidate really develop that analytical consultant mindset. But I think moving to a more specific answer with respect to resources that are available, like I mentioned, the consulting club, Natasha, is something that I think is I've really experienced this at another business school as well, because like I mentioned, I went to Cornell for a semester. The one at IESE is extremely robust and very, very well populated with industry experts, alumni who are all currently working in top firms, right? So whether it's your McKinsey, Bain, BCG, whether it's locations like London, Dubai, Germany, Paris, New York even, right? All of these alumni actually, through something called the Buddy Network and the Consulting Club, come to campus twice a semester to do mock interviews, to engage with budding consultants and really share what it takes to really crack a McKinsey, right? And I think the one thing that I would like to share here is that each of these, much like every business school, right? Every school has their own culture and their own sort of strengths, the kind of profiles they're looking for. Each consulting company is very much the same, right? So if you are mass applying to McKinsey, Bain, BCG, you're potentially probably only going to get into one because you fit with just that one particular organization, right? Whether it's the skill sets that you're bringing to the table, whether it's the way in which you communicate, whether it's the way in which you are analyzing a problem. So I think these alumni interactions really play a valuable role here, right? Because when you have somebody who comes from a McKinsey and is really telling you that, you know what, this is how the culture of the company is, right? I think maybe you should look at a Bain, because it's more suitable to how you see your growth, right? You're interested in consumer products. You are not a very aggressive individual. You like to work with a good team. A McKinsey is going to really be up or out, right? For instance. So I think that's number one, the whole buddy system of how the consulting club works, that helps potential consultants truly focus their energies into really then hammering behind Bain, and not spreading themselves too thin. Okay, I want to do BCG also, I want to do Deloitte also, I want to do Kearney also, I want to do Roland Berger also, right? And I think the third thing that I would like to say is the lead, right? The consulting career development lead, right? Now he is also an ex McKinsey, who is now part of the career development center at IESE, dedicated to only fostering relationships with consulting companies and IESE students, right? So when you have one member who's dedicated to providing just like what your resume needs to look like if you're applying to a consulting job, which, trust me, looks very different from applying to Amazon versus applying to say Credit Suisse, or Citi, for instance, for an investment banking job, right? So he sits down with you and he's like, okay, this is what we need to do for your resume. This is how you need to work on your mock interviews, right? ISE has access to, I think, 10,000 mock cases that you can work on, which are all bought and for students, that you can work on to really sort of amp up your and crack that consulting interview, right? Because it is literally about cracking those case studies in the consulting interview, which really can be like nerve wracking, right? And also you have 10 minutes to do your PI, right? Or your process interview with a consulting firm. How do you put your best foot forward in just those 10 minutes? How do you convince them that I am the guy for your team or your company or the organization? So I think these are several ways in which ISE really focuses on building a consulting career path, especially for non-consulting background students, I would say.
Yeah, that's extremely interesting. That's extremely
Yeah.
interesting. We have a question here, I think from Girish K, who's asking whether there is any preference given to students who apply in early decision.
Yes, like I mentioned, because we know you're committing to the program early on in the cycle, we do tend to, I would say the conversion rates overall are higher for the early round as opposed to the other rounds, because we do want to provide meritorious results to candidates who have shown faith and have told us that they're truly passionate about attending our program. So certainly, if you are looking for, or if you know that you definitely want to come to ISE, early round should be a target goal for you.
That's great. Now we have two questions around testing.
Okay.
So the first is, what's a competitive GRE score for an Indian male candidate? Does the verbal quant split matter?
So I would say that, a competitive, well, I don't want to fix on a number. I even cringe when I have to say 680 is the average GMAT, on the website, Natasha, and whoever's asking this question. Because you know what, guys, I truly believe that, especially because I've been part of so many admissions committees now at IESE, it's never the GMAT or the GRE that makes or breaks a decision for us, right? It's always looking at you holistically. A 780 or a 335 on your GRE is not going to guarantee you an admit. Likewise, a 310 or a 312 on your GRE and like a 640 is also not going to mean that you're an instant reject. Not at all, right? So I would say that at the end of the day, I'm looking at you holistically. What do you bring to the table, right? Are you somebody who's open to collaborating? Are you interested in peer-to-peer learning? Are you going to be willing to invest in developing others? But at the same time, you're also very, very willing to learn from others, right? Because you could be a fantastic, test taker and have a great score, but maybe if you're not a cultural fit, you would not thrive at ISE, right? So I would say, well, to be a little more direct so that I don't leave you with a generic answer, I would say as an Indian male candidate, sure, the expectation is a bit higher from you. Well, unfortunately, because you are an overrepresented, section of the applicants. But I would say anything between 650 onwards is something that I would, on a GMAT and an equivalent GRE, I would sort of be it would be acceptable to me. When it comes to the quant versus the verbal split, yes, I do look at this score because I don't want one section to be overskewed over the other. If this is the case, I would in fact urge you to really use your application to sort of tell me that you do have the other skill set as well, right? So let's assume that your verbal is much higher, quant is much lower, right? Now you want to use your resume to really give me statistical impact of your work and show me that, look, I can work with quant, right? I have an analytical mindset. Use the optional essay to perhaps tell me instances where you have used these skill sets to do well at work or otherwise, right? Or maybe you have your GPA from college or courses that you've done additionally beyond just, your undergrad that can really combat this low, quant score that you have right now, on your test, right? Because I understand that it's one test. I mean, remember, I was in your place, right? I was the one also struggling with these standardized tests. So I feel you, which is what I'm saying. I'm not holding it against you, right? But don't just assume that I would let it go, right? Use the application and the several opportunities that we give you over there to really sort of balance it out and tell me, look, I know that this is probably not the best quant score, but let me tell you ways in which I do have these skill sets available.
Right. And the second question around testing is, are you test optional for admission?
Is a test optional?
Are you test optional? As I say, test optional
No.
for admission?
No,
Okay.
Unfortunately or fortunately not. The only optional for you right now as an Indian applicant would be the English test, like I said. So you don't need to give me a TOEFL or an IELTS because you would have done your undergrad in English, is what I assume, and then you don't need it. But the GMAT or the GRE is a absolute must.
Cool. So Viraj now has two questions for you. Okay. So the first is with regards to the class profile. So he mentions that he understands it's filled with individuals from consulting, finance, technology. Now he's currently a tech consultant turned revenues head, like the sales function. So does that put him at a disadvantage within the class?
Not at all, Viraj. I mean, honestly, the slide that I showed you was just like a numerical representation, right? You saw a huge chunk was something called industry. Now that's you, right? So that's literally what you would represent, and essentially we're very open to diverse experiences, right? And I truly mean it, right? I came from a family business, hardcore marketing background in real estate, right? Where would I fit into my slide right now? Nowhere. But here I am. Right? So just giving you a perspective that not at all, it definitely doesn't put you at a disadvantage. In fact, if at all, if with this change from being a tech consultant to now going into a sales role, if that's given you a boost as a leader, right? If you're probably now leading a team or working with like in a more sort of dynamic environment, use that to your advantage and tell me now that you have a bigger or a larger experience, right? You know the tech and the consulting part, and now you're in something new entirely, right? So definitely not a disadvantage.
Great. And the second part of his question with regard to the international exchange program, so this is around that, does this run after a majority of the recruiting cycles? I'm trying to understand if doing an international exchange program would hurt my chances of landing a full-time job in Spain or Europe.
Fantastic question, Viraj. I'd love to meet you outside of this conversation as well, but great question. Yes, so what would happen is that I'm assuming here that you might probably want to get into big tech. Be completely wrong about this, but let's assume you want to get into big tech, right, for your internship and post the MBA. You would essentially anyways have the opportunity to meet all the companies on campus, be a part of all recruitment opportunities on campus for internship, which is pretty much the same when it comes to full-time job opportunities. In fact, as an international applicant, guys, internships are the best way for you to get yourself a full-time. More than 70% of Indians convert internships into full-time offers, right? So you essentially have a full-time offer even before you graduated from the program. And this happens a lot. This year, I had like a student who went in last year, got a BCG offer of internship and full-time on the table together, right? So that's the kind of chances an internship has for you. So to answer your question, you will have enough and more opportunities to score yourself an internship, because anyways, all of this happens before you go for your exchange, right? If you are working with Amazon, by the time you finish your internship, you already know that, you have a full-time offer or not, right? So which automatically means that you don't have to worry about recruitment post once you go for the exchange. If you go for the exchange, you will probably go in the fall semester, which does mean that some companies come to campus in the fall semester, some come in the spring semester. So you would have to weigh in your options and see which one works out for you, and then decide whether the exchange is a good deal for you or not.
Okay, thanks, Riddhi. Now, here's a very different question. We have someone who's asking, apart from tech, has IESE also seen companies from the entertainment sector recruit in recent years?
So when you say entertainment, are you thinking like OTT platforms?
I would say a broad spectrum would be maybe what this person would like to know. I mean, please feel free, whoever's asked this question, if you want more detail. But, Riddhi, broadly, would you be able to let us know the scope?
Certainly. So if I were to answer this, Natasha, keeping in mind like some OTT platforms like Netflix, or Hulu, or of course Amazon Prime, all of these still do very well with respect to recruitment. We've seen a growth, right? I mean, of course, I think the last 2 years with the COVID-19 pandemic, fortunately for the OTT platform, unfortunately for the rest of us and then what we all went through, but fortunately for this segment of the industry, they did very bad, right? Which also directly reflected in recruitment opportunities. Though I wouldn't say that, yes, it's one of the key sort of sectors that IESE recruits in. It would probably be amongst like, the 2 to 3% of the total recruitment that happens in these sectors. Again, it depends. What role are you looking for, right? Are you looking for a product manager role? Are you looking for a marketing role? All of this would differ, because if as an Indian applicant, you're looking for a marketing role with a Netflix or an Amazon Prime, you have to be very picky about location, right? Because as a marketer, if you don't know the local language or have the local market understanding, it's going to be difficult for you to devise localized strategies. Right? So I think it completely depends, but I would say it's a growing segment, not necessarily something that's kicking in 10-12% of recruitment like the other sectors.
Cool. I have a question for you, and I'm going to go back to something that you mentioned. What was your favorite elective?
No, thank you for asking that. Well, my favorite elective was something called the EXIM. Right? So it's the full form of which is executive simulation. It was the most grueling, frustrating 1 week of my year 2, but also the most rewarding. And I'll tell you why, right? Because right after year 1, like I mentioned, I was in this amazing family bubble of my, 7 team members, and we were like this beautiful family going out for dinners every once a month, doing escape rooms, right? So I was so used to all of them. Now come executive simulation in year 2, this team no longer exists, right? You're put into a team with 7 other members, and they very categorically remember to never pair you with somebody who's been in your learning team in your second year, right? Because they obviously want you to have a more diverse experience. So come year 2, you've suddenly entered into a new team of 7 members. Each of you all are CXOs of an organization, which is of course running in this parallel universe, running, in these different industries where there's something happening on a day-to-day basis, right? So I was a CMO, I had a CTO, a CIO, a CEO, a CEO, and all of that, right? And we were 7, 8 of us. You're working in this one team room along with, say, 8 other exim teams, and all of you all are essentially competitors, right, of each other. At 2 a.m. in the morning, I get an email saying there's been a fire at your warehouse. How are you going to handle this from a PR? You have to deliver a PR statement in 2 hours, right? Which means that for 7 days, none of us slept. Most of us stayed back in school in sleeping bags, because you really want to like make sure that you don't miss out on an opportunity. You're doing pricing simulations, you're doing financial models, you're doing operations, you're doing sales strategy, you're doing marketing strategy, everything in with changes happening in like crazy real time, and you're almost moving like like 2 to 3 years every day, right? So I think to me that was a fantastic way to really like put yourself in a pressure test environment, and also see what kind of a leader you will be, right? Do you handle the pressure well? Of course, I had team members who were cracking, and how, right? And but it was also some of us who were really like pulling up the weight for the others. So I think it's a great way. And the end of the session is not about who wins and then who's got the most profit, right? This is what they teach you, right? They really professors who are literally spying on you through these 7 days will actually sit down with you and tell you, that this is what happened. This is how you behaved, right? This is what you did. And I think those insights still stick with me. So I think EXIM was my favorite elective. Yeah.
Great. Rithi, we've come to the end of the hour. We've
Yes.
answered
That's
questions.
fast.
Yeah, that went fast. It was a pleasure to listen to you.
Absolutely.
I thank you very much for the time you've taken to give us these insights. And yeah, I mean, I just hope that, people who are attending this call have
Yeah.
really absorbed this information and are looking at early decision with ISA. So
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much, Natasha, and the entire team at Red Pen for having me here this evening. I certainly had a fantastic time talking about my experiences and, of course, giving you guys as much information as I possibly could about IESE. Nonetheless, if you guys have any questions, queries, I would say, you can reach out to the team at Red Pen and they'll be happy to sort of connect us later. So thank you again. Thank you, Team Red Pen. Thank you very much, Natasha, for being a fantastic moderator, and see you all very soon.
see you. Bye-bye.